Good morning, everyone, and welcome to episode 39 of the Godzilla Wins Saturday Picks Show on this lovely Saturday morning in Tunica, Mississippi on April 29th, 2023. I'm your co-host, Jack Fredericks, editor of GodzillaWins.com, alongside my father, the Godzilla of Truth, Johnny Chalk, John Fredericks, and the degenerate we all know and love, Nate Perry. We are here with our esteemed panel of perfect sports predictors from the Godzilla Wins universe. We have our fight guy and senior South Florida lifestyles editor, Patrick Assalone, America's Sherriff David Clarke, and Godzilla Wins senior baseball and NHL contributor, Dan Angell. We have a terrific show for you kind folks today. For the first half hour, we're talking UFC Vegas 72. Then at 9 a.m., we're previewing the Kentucky Derby, which is only 1 week away. We'll do some NFL draft homerism for you, a little NBA playoffs overreaction, and we'll close out with some MLB and NHL rapid fire. This is the Godzilla Wins Saturday Pick Show, and it starts right now. Okay, welcome everybody to the show.
Hey, great to be here.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Glad to have you guys. Okay, so Patrick, Nate, we're always starting at 8:30 a.m. Eastern time with our UFC preview. We've got UFC Vegas 72. Main event is a bantamweight bout between Yadong Song and Simon. I want to talk about Ricky Simon. There we go. It's written down on my next page. Sorry.
Ricky Simone.
Simone.
We were all wrong.
I'll tell you what, I'll just start this way. I am always struggling with these names in the UFC, and my preparation for the show encompasses a lot. And every week I think I need to look up these guys' pronunciation of these names because I get it wrong all the time. So maybe I'll just throw it to Patrick and say, Patrick, who's fighting? And then we'll move on from there. So I'm excited about that fight. But one of the things I want to do first, just very quickly, and we're going to leave almost 20 minutes for the main event fight, is I want to just talk about some undercard fights that you guys might be excited about, either from a fight perspective, which is our fight guy, Patrick, or from a betting perspective, our in-house counsel, Nate. So, Patrick, let's start with you. Is there a fight on the undercard that you're really excited about?
Absolutely. Vieira versus Brundage. And there's so many variables going on in this fight. First and foremost, they're both 3-2 in their last 5 fights. They both lost. Vieira by decision, Brundage by knockout. So let's go to Vieira first. He's a great athlete. Easily the more athletic of the two. He's a decorated Brazilian black belt. And what does that mean versus a regular Brazilian jiu-jitsu black belt? When you're decorated like this guy is, who's won all kinds of grappling tournaments all over the world, that puts you leaps and bounds above a air fingers quote regular black belt, no matter how good they are in the gym, because something that people don't seem to understand is that every tournament that you enter, it gives you literally an extra year of experience. And the reason being is you're not going against a bunch of dojo guys who you know every single thing that they do. It's an experience. So it's absolutely a big difference. He has no problem striking. As a matter of fact, his striking is probably as good as his ground game. He has more tools to win this fight than Brundage does. And before I go to my final analysis of Vieira, I want to go to Brundage because there's a very special dynamic going here. Now, Brundage hits very hard. He comes forward. They both actually come forward. So I love that kind of fight where they're just going to meet in the center and beat each other's brains out. I freaking love that. He hits a little bit harder, I would say, Brundage. He's got really good wrestling. Don't be surprised if Vieira gets hit hard, and there's a reason I'm saying this. If he gets hit hard and he tries to go into some kind of blast double takedown, which he's got, it's very good takedown. But I think Brundage's takedown defense is better than Vieira's takedown offense. Brundage is the kind of guy that will sit there and take 2 to throw 1. That's a real dangerous guy. So you really don't want to get in a slugging battle with him. Now, here's the issue that concerns me about Vieira. Vieira, by his own admission, does not like to fight. He doesn't like it. It makes him nervous. He doesn't want to be there. Literally, which is shocking for me that somebody would make that admission. Where on the other hand, Brundage loves to fight. So when you weigh these things out, and we've gone over this many times about saying, well, this person has more ways to win. They've got more tools. Let me tell you something, and I've said this for 30, 35 years about this sport. You give me a nasty, tough street kid who can punch and defend takedowns, I will take him over any black belt, anytime, any day, because the kid wants to fight more and loves it. So that's my big concern with this fight.
Okay, so Patrick, I want to ask you this question then, as someone who I can maybe make this the assumption, although you might correct me here. I can probably assume that when you were in the ring, you were the kind of guy who loves to fight.
Love it.
Is there a moment when you like, let's say you're fighting someone who hypothetically doesn't say out loud that he doesn't like to fight, that it makes him nervous, but you get in the ring, are there some ways you can kind of tell, like, ooh, this guy doesn't really like being here? This is something that I can just sort of attack. Is there stuff you look for in that? Have you ever been in a situation like that?
Well, I've got to be completely honest. I honestly don't care about the other person on the other side of the cage or the ring. It means nothing to me. They're just in my way. To me, I am going in there. When I went into fight, and I had this change in thinking probably the last half of my career, where I stopped caring about winning and losing, and all I wanted to do was hurt them as badly as I possibly could. When I changed that mindset, I sort of took that variable out of it, and you're just in my way, and I'm going to keep on hurting you until you quit or until it's over. So I never thought about that. One thing I can tell you though, when I fought for the world championship, I did it twice. I lost the first time, I won the second time. In the third round, when I took my opponent down and I put him into the cage, and the first elbow I dropped on his face, I knew the fight was over because I felt the life go out of him. He was still there, but he was there physically, but not there mentally. And I knew it was over, and I proceeded to pound on him until the end of the round. And he didn't move. I ended up knocking his mouthpiece out at the end of the round. You know, when you feel somebody just, that's it, it's over. And you know it, they've given up.
Yeah, I mean, I've coached enough basketball to have seen that just in general in a team sport, where I've been on the bench and turned to the head coach and said, they're giving up, or listen, we hit one more three, these guys are going to lay down. It's like the third quarter. It's interesting how you can kind of feel that, especially in a contact sport. I would imagine you get them on the mat or something, you're pounding them, you're thinking, this guy's kind of done. Okay, so Nate, UFC 72, from a betting perspective out there in Nevada, what might be a fight you're excited about?
Well, the fight that I'm excited about is actually kind of the opener. I've been staring really hard at this Haley Cowan, Jamie Lynn Horth fight. Mostly because, like, from a betting perspective, it just seems like everything that I've read indicates that Haley Cowan is in the UFC, maybe not because she's an awesome fighter, but maybe she's marketable for other reasons. And Jamie Lynn Horth fights for real. So this just feels like a little bit of a mismatch. It feels like the UFC really wants to have Haley Cowan in there. They tried to find her somebody that they thought they could win, and it seems like the betting market is not fooled. This fight opened right around Pick'em, and now it's Jamie Lynn Horth minus 170. It seems pretty clear that everyone's sort of on her. Haley Cowan's sort of fight record isn't awesome. She's 7-2. She's won 2 split decisions in those victories. It seems like a lot of smart people are saying that maybe some of those split decisions she shouldn't have even won. So this just seems like a mismatch. So from a betting perspective, just purely on that, it seems like the whole world's on Jamie Lynn Horth to win this fight. And I would be inclined to bet with the whole rest of the world, particularly because this is also the sort of fight where we're always talking about this, like when guys miss weight, or in this case, women miss weight. Cowan missed weight in this fight. She's had a few canceled because she couldn't get weight or some other issue coming on. So this is really like her first UFC debut. It actually looks like she's going to fight this time. So I'm willing to bet on Jamie Lynn Horth here and lay the minus 170, just because it seems like sort of a mismatch from just like a sort of talent perspective.
And that'll happen a lot in those undercard fights. Patrick?
Yeah, Jack, I want to add something. And I think what Nate said is perfect. I listen to a lot of people preparing for these things. And I particularly listen to people who despise each other. And when you have people who despise each other are saying the same exact thing, there's probably something there. And this is sort of the same thing that happens in the business of pro wrestling. When you try to manufacture a star and they can't work, it does not work. They fail miserably. Well, this is real. Not the professional wrestling injuries and the brutality of it is not real, but this is a real fight. And when you have people who know they've earned their way there against people who they know probably should not be there, the rage comes out. Trust me on this one. And sooner or later, Callan's going to have to fight somebody. No matter how you package her, you're going to have to fight somebody sooner or later. And when you do, it doesn't end up well if you're not supposed to be there.
You know, I read a lot of UFC stuff in preparation of the show and just because I'm a fan. And I see this a lot of some people who follow the sport way closer than I do, who say, I'm not really sure why this person got a contract. I don't really see the logic here. And I think from a fighter's perspective or an analyst perspective, we see that a lot. From a marketing perspective, you know, Dana White is pretty savvy. And like you're saying, Patrick, I mean, he will try to manufacture stars and interest if he can. So it seems like this may be one where he swung and missed. And he'll give fighters a long leash if he feels like he can market them. Yeah, Patrick.
Also, and what a lot of people don't seem to understand is they've got huge television contracts, so they need to produce content. They have to.
Especially in the undercard.
Especially the undercard.
Yeah,
and
the ESPN contract has changed the way they do stuff.
Yeah, and when you've got to produce content, it's volume. You got to have volume. And then they're also showing it on their pay service as well, the UFC service, you know, so they're making money off of that too. And content is king. So that's also a reason to bring somebody in. But as we were speaking about earlier, I'm just not a big fan of manufacturing your stars.
Yeah, well, especially from a handicapping perspective, we want to pick people who want to win.
Winners.
So yeah, we want to pick winners. So I want to talk about one, then we'll get to Simone and Song. And this is another name issue I might have some trouble with. The Waldo Cortez Acosta fight versus Mracor's Rogerio de Lima. This is sort of an interesting fight. There you go. Thanks. So this is sort of an interesting fight because Cortez Acosta is 9-0. And I kind of like his story. He was a former Major League Baseball pitcher, had a cup of coffee with the Reds, and is a former LFA heavyweight champion, kind of moved to Ultimate Fighting and MMA after his MLB career ended. So I'm just kind of interested in that story in general. He moves really well and has like a consistent output, and his cardio, because he's been a professional, not that all these guys aren't, but for a heavyweight, his cardio is really, really solid. So he is the underdog in this fight. De Lima has always had the reputation as being kind of a round one or bust type of fighter. So if he can get you knockout in round one, great. If not, he has an incredible fight IQ though. So he can kind of understand the game plan of his opponent and adjust, which of course I know we all probably hold that in high regard. If you can have a high fight IQ and adjust on the fly, or if your game plan is malleable. I love watching those types of fighters because they come out in one strategy and then they'll switch. And that's really interesting to see. But he's 37 years old, heavy favorite here. I'm just kind of hoping the fight goes a little bit later and maybe Cortez Acosta with a little bit more youth and cardio outlast. You get a little bit of plus money on that. But I'm also, I got to say, just a little I'm so interested in Cortez Acosta's story that it might be blinding some of my handicapping there. So we'll see. Should be a really interesting UFC 72. For anyone who is all of our listeners, next week, we're doing a big UFC preview on May 6th for some big fights. So pay attention to that. Make sure you come out next week. Okay, before we move on, Dad, I saw you drinking your coffee down there. Why don't you tell us about Beard Vet Coffee?
Well, Beard Vet Coffee, one of our sponsors, I really want to thank Sean George and Kenny Lee. These guys are great. They both served. These are veterans. They wanted to make a great cup of joe. They couldn't get one when they served in Iraq and Afghanistan. So they came back and made it their mission. A percentage of everything they make goes back to veterans organizations. I've told you this story before. They came out to East Palestine where we had a town hall meeting. They brought 1,000 boxes. I don't mean like Keurigs. I mean boxes. They brought 1,000 boxes of coffee Keurigs and the beans and everything. And they just gave them away. We asked them, hey, you want some airtime? You want to promote your product? No, we're not here for that. We're here to help people. My wife, Ann, said, if we can't promote a company like this, why are we in the business? That's what your mom said. So Beard Vet, go to beardvet.com, beardvet.com. Going to get great coffee at a great price, beardvet.com. And thank you, Beard Vet, for being one of our sponsors on Godzilla Wins. Thank you.
Yes, absolutely. We love partnering with Beard Vet Coffee. I'm drinking their coffee as well right now. I've been drinking it all week long. Really incredible stuff. Got me jacked up for this morning and for the main event bantamweight fight between Song and Simone. So, Patrick, can you preview the fight for us a little bit? Talk about the style of both these fighters, then we'll kind of bounce around some of our ideas. We got about almost 13, 14 minutes.
Sure. Let's talk about Song. Excellent striker, hits really hard. He's got great head movement. I'm a big fan of the guys who don't move around very much, but have phenomenal head movement. I love that. It just shows what professionals people are, and they're not necessarily wasting energy. He's also very elusive standing. What does that mean? He's really hard to hit. That's what I've seen. Of course, everybody gets stuck. What are you going to do? Okay. He creates openings for his strikes. His head movement creates openings. If you're not there and someone is really getting frustrated trying to hit you, it's very easy to set up counter strikes. He's got a pretty decent game off of his back, which is going to play right into Simone here. Simone is a flashy striker. He's got really good takedowns. He's very exciting. Almost one of those, he's in one of these kind of Clay Guida molds where he's moving and shaking all over the place. He's an excellent wrestler, and he uses his stand-up to set up his wrestling takedowns. If I'm going to look at this fight, and I didn't pick a winner in the last fight just because when you're going to have two guys that stand in front of each other and bang, you really have no idea what's going to happen. They could knock each other out, and I've seen that happen. I'm going to go with Song by knockout, and I'm going to go with Simone by decision, because I think that it could get into a fight where Simone takes Song down and he's good on top, but Song is very good off of his back, and you sort of stalemate there. If a winner's got to be chosen, I'm going Song by knockout. I'm going Simone by decision.
Interesting. Okay, so a couple props for our listeners here: Song by knockout or Simone by decision. Very interesting. Patrick, I want to ask you one question, something that you kind of mentioned, then we'll get to Nate here. What do you mean? So you're saying Song has terrific head movement. What do you mean by the head movement creates openings?
When it's very hard to hit someone, and the kind of guy that stands right in front of you but has phenomenal head and shoulder movement, he's constantly moving out of the way, slipping things, but not making these gigantic, overreaching moves. It frustrates the hell out of people. When I was really athletic one time, I was able to do that kind of stuff with guys that I knew I could do it with guys that were predominantly wrestlers, and I knew my takedown defense was better. So I would frustrate them in throwing bombs. And what would happen is the less they hit you or get close to hitting you, the more aggressive they get with their strikes. And they try to overcompensate because they just know they're going to get you. You're frustrating them. And what happens is that head movement really frustrates people because you're hitting air. And when you're hitting air, you're generally overextending on your strikes, which gives your opponent the opportunity to really counter-strike, really counter-punch, hit hard, because when you overextend, you're essentially stuck in a position for a fraction of a second. And when you're stuck there, your chin makes a great target.
So Song also has some really incredible range. Is Patrick, if you're Simone, is the strategy to get him on the mat? Because he is one of the best wrestlers in the UFC. Is it just, look, I got to avoid this first or second round knockout. I got to get him down so I can wrestle. Is that your strategy if you're Simone?
I would just stay away from him, period, standing up. I would use some very quick strikes to set up my takedowns and just be very aware, which I'm sure Simone is Song is very good off his back. Stay in his guard and pound him. Just beat him up, because when you're in somebody's guard, and for all intents and purposes, when you're fighting MMA, there's only a few things somebody can do from their back. They can armbar you, they can triangle choke you, they can sweep you, they can stand up. There's not a lot of places to go here. So what you really want to do is take him down and just beat him to death and make it a very boring fight. That's what I would do if I were Simone.
Yeah, boring. That's an interesting way to put it. Sometimes when they get on the mat, you think, oh, here we go. But if you know anything about wrestling, it's actually can be some of the most interesting parts of the fight. Trying to watch someone come out of that and get back up on their feet. I'm sure Song will try to do that if he gets down on the mat. Nate, from a betting perspective, what do you like here?
From a betting perspective, this is basically the most even main event fight we've had in a while. It's Song.
Yeah, it is.
Song Yadong is minus 100 or plus 100, and Ricky Simone is minus 120. I mean, I think that in my heart of hearts, I think I like Simone here as a small favorite, but I don't know. Like, I have a hard time like quantifying it, other than this is a 5-round fight. It seems like the cardio edge probably goes to Simone, and it seems like the wrestling probably tires out Song at some point. And you can kind of win some rounds just by being in control while Song is tiring. So I mean, this isn't like the sexiest pick, but I guess like I'd lay the minus 120. But this fight looks, I mean, this one's tough for me to break down, and I looked at a lot of weird props. But ultimately, I think that Patrick is probably right in his initial analysis that he gave us. Which was the two props. It was what did you like, Patrick? You like
Song by knockout, Simone by decision.
Yeah, I mean that feels right.
Nate, do you have those odds?
Yeah, I can pull them up really quickly.
Pull them up real quick, and I'll talk about Song, because I kind of like Song here as the small underdog, and I have some weird analysis why. Number one, so he's listed as being 25, but nobody really actually knows how old he is, and there's some real questions on under if he's actually 25, especially because in his entire career he's 19-7-1. So he's got more fights than his age, and his UFC career is 8-2-1. So he's not as young as I think people think. Ricky Simone 20-3. I mean, you know, his record speaks for itself. I think that Simone being 20-3 and being just a very small favorite, I feel like maybe Vegas knows something that we don't about Song. So a lot of experience for a guy who's supposed to be around 25 years old. If he can help it, this could be a fight that doesn't go to scorecard, right? So I kind of like the knockout. He hits so hard. He likes to keep the fights within the striking realm. He has a pretty good reach. So I kind of like Song for those reasons. Also, I don't think that his cardio should be underestimated. Yeah, Simone has terrific cardio too. Those guys who get guys to the mat and who like to wrestle, I mean, their cardio is always incredible because that's kind of where their game is. But I don't think Song's cardio is like that horrible. So I'm kind of thinking that, you know, if he can keep Simone at striking distance, maybe kind of wear him out and get a knockout in the second round, that's kind of where I'm leading. But the plus 100, I'm not. I mean, if you think Song's going to win by knockout, then there's no reason to take the plus 100 when you can take some prop for his knockout.
Plus 200.
Yeah, plus 200. So you get to double your odds there. Patrick, you got something?
Yeah, and you make a great point here, Jack, that a lot of people don't understand. It takes an awful lot of energy to take someone down. Well, when someone is on top of you and you're on your back, unless you've been there and understand the energy expenditure it takes to fight gravity and that person and you're back against a mat, you have cardio. the guy, and he does this constantly. He fights off his back all the time. You're going to be in shape. And Nate's got a fantastic point there. He absolutely does. The taking people down beats them to death, but it's the taking down and letting them up, taking them down, letting them up that really blows people up, meaning the person being taken down. Okay, because it is a terrible situation where blood flow is constantly changing direction and you do get blown up. So you both have phenomenal points as far as cardio goes.
I guess that's what struck me was looking at this fight. It looks as though, I mean, you know, historically, Simone is good for about 4 takedown attempts per round, and he succeeds on about half of them. So you figure about twice a round, he's going to have Song on his back, or at least struggling some way. So that's a lot, and that just feels like eventually it's just going to wear you out if you just. But
don't you guys? I mean, don't all you guys think that just? I mean, Simone's a slight favorite here for a reason. I'm not an expert here, but just hearing what you guys are saying and looking at it, I mean, I'm kind of with Patrick. I mean, Simone's going to win this fight, and doesn't look like. I mean, you know, you're laying what 120. I mean, if I lay 120 in baseball, it's like betting the underdog.
Yeah, we all know
true for you lately.
Johnny
we
Chalk.
all know. Yeah, we all know that you're okay laying minus 420 and being like, yeah, easy.
Winner's a winner.
Yeah, they're favorites for a reason.
You know,
So, okay.
I love you guys. I love you guys, right? You know, don't be jealous. Be happy that I'm building your company because of all these winners. I was 4-1 again last night. I'm up like $600 for the season. I'm beating everybody in Vegas, and you guys should be like serrating me with flowers and stuff instead of like, you know, calling me Johnny Chalk.
Serrating
You are
knife.
You are since Sunday. You have taken 25 favorites.
What's the difference?
You've taken 5 underdogs and 1 even, and 3 of those underdogs were the Astros. So, like,
am I up $600 for the season or not? I mean, that's all that matters. This is the whole millennial gig here, right? You guys want to dig in and find, oh, he did this, too many favorites. He only bet this team with he bet 1 even. Hey, at the end of the day, it's, what is it? April 29th. I got 2 more days. I'm going to get out of April up probably 700 or 800, betting $100 units against the DraftKings spread. I'll put that up against anybody in Vegas, anybody.
Yeah,
and win.
This is the type of thinking that crashed the economy in 2008. You know, I'm not surprised that like that's your thinking there of just, well, a winner's a winner. You are 1 bad weekend away from being like 2,500 in the hole, and when that happens, because you take these huge risks with these massive favorites, and all you got to do is go 0-4 2 days in a row, and you're just like.
I'm through the end of April. I've not gone 0-4 one time. I was 4-1 again last night. I'll probably one of these days.
We have a term for this in gambling, and what you're doing right now is eating like a bird, and at some point you're going to crap like an elephant, and you're going to lose all of that winnings.
You guys, look, I'm building your company. You guys should be rooting for me. You should be cheering me on, saying what a great job I'm doing. Right, Patrick?
They're haters, John. They're haters.
They're haters. I mean, they're millennial haters. Like, I wish I could do that. So let's say, he only bets the favorite. Okay, so I go to the window, I cash a ticket, I get money back, more money than I gave you. That's called winning.
Is this how you bet on horses? Because I don't want to go if this is how you bet on horses. I don't want to just be cashing 5-2 all day.
Right. Also,
I bet only to win. I don't bet exotics. I bet only to win. And when I get hot, look out. I can hit 6-7 in a row.
You don't. All right, whatever. We're going to move on. Cause like, this is, I mean, look, fine. First of all, like, stop referring to millennials as though we're not like 30-year-old men. You're referring to us as though we're like children. Like I pay a mortgage, you know, I've got bills.
No, Jack, we're just old.
Yeah, like, I mean, y'all are just like, oh, you millennials with your spreadsheets and your TikTok. And also go to our TikTok page, Godzilla Wins Big. That's our TikTok page where Dad posts all his picks, and then people comment and say, dude went 2-3 and all I did was pick favorites. What a loser. So we're not the only people who are catching on to this. Is all I'm saying. We're not the only people who are catching on to this. So we want to welcome Dan Angell to the show as well. He's just joined us. We're just talking, Dan, about my father's proclivity for picking favorites. We can get into that in the MLB stuff.
What do you put my stuff on? What is it called? TikTok? I don't even know what it is.
Yeah, I uploaded on TikTok, and then everybody is like, "Man, this guy's like ridiculous." 25 favorites, 5 underdogs, and one. And
I'm up 695 through April, betting $100 units, and Dan Angell wishes he was up 695 like me, but it's all good.
Yeah, I'm sure he does.
I mean, I hit a 7-game parlay on FCS football last football. I'm doing fine.
Yeah.
What the hell is FCS football?
Fine.
What's that?
I'll tell you that. I'll tell you that story
Division III?
during football. I'll tell you that. No, it's 1AA, or at least what used to be 1AA.
Yeah.
Mary School, the Headless and Blind.
Jackson State.
The last one I had Howard plus 17.5 and needed a last second touchdown to pull that off.
If you're betting Howard football games on a Saturday afternoon, Danny, you gotta find a life, baby. We gotta get you something to do.
Fine.
I turned $10 into $475. I'm doing well.
See, that's what we like. Not I laid 520 monopoly money to win 100 on the Cubs. So okay. Dad, why don't you, before we get too off track here, why don't you tell us about Birch Gold while we're talking about saving money?
Well, listen, you got to take care of your family. I don't care how old you are. You got to plan for your retirement, and everybody knows what happened to us during 2008. It's a horrible story. But right now, if you've got your money in our IRA, 401k, pension plans, whatever, you really should look at this economy to some really serious diversification. Personally, I like gold. I put all my retirement in that. I'm not a financial analyst. See your financial analyst. And loves silver. She's got her reasons for that. But either way, if this economy crashes and the stocks go down, you don't want to get wiped out. Gold and silver and precious metals are always going to be there. There's always going to be a value there. So what I really urge everybody to do, and I know we all like to gamble and have some fun here, but you can't gamble on your future. So all you got to do is text Godzilla. That's me. Text the word Godzilla to 989898. And then our company, Birch Gold, who's a sponsor of our show, they do great work. They're going to send you a 20-page info kit. Read it over, look it over like I did. Then talk to your financial advisor, make your own decisions, but you got to get the information. Information in today's economy is power. We don't know what's going to happen out there. A lot of people say there's going to be a recession. That's going to affect your retirement portfolio. Get some of that money in precious metals. The only company I do business with is Birch Gold. Why? Because their rates are reasonable. Their service is phenomenal. I trust them, and they're great people. And you're going to love the experience. It's seamless and easy to transfer some of your IRA, 401k, or pension plan into them. Just text the word Godzilla to 989898, and you're good to go.
Thanks, Dad. And we want to thank Birch Gold for joining our team here and supporting what we're doing. So, Dad, I want to talk just a little bit, and we're going to let you kind of drive this conversation, although I've got some notes. And Dan, if you want to jump in, you're welcome to as well. But we're going to just preview the Kentucky Derby for about maybe 5-10 minutes. Then I know we're all sort of chomping at the bit for the NFL draft, which we'll talk about as well. So as far as the Kentucky Derby goes, Dad, May 6th, this is the biggest race in America. Can you preview some of the big storylines here for our listeners who are interested?
I think this Derby is very interesting because you've got a lot of closers. A lot of these horses come off the pace, no real front runners. One of them in there, Maggi, can't get out of the gate. He's having all kinds of issues there. So you can't really bet that horse. Forte is the favorite. He's 7-2. If it was 7-2 on post time, I would bet a ton of money on Forte to win. I just don't think it's going to be 7-2. I think this horse is going to get bet down. He's clearly the class horse in this race. Now, he just worked out today about what time is it? 9, about an hour and a half ago. He ran he ran a half-mile sprint in 50:09. He's got the speed. He seems to be in fine shape. No issues. Ortiz Jr.'s on him, and he's trained by Todd Pletcher. So he's going to be the one to beat. But the problem is he comes off the pace and there's no front runners here. So you're going to have, it makes it a little more difficult for all these closers when there's nobody really setting the pace, which also opens the door for somebody to go wire to wire and steal it if they possibly can. So Forte was a 2-year-old champion. He was undefeated in 2022. He's won both his races, grade 1 and grade 2 in 2023. And so he's got everything going for him. He did win the grade 1 Florida Derby, but he only won that by 1 length. And so kind of the invincibility of Forte might have been pierced a little bit because he was not exactly, he didn't win that thing by 5 or 6. He faded a little bit after he got a lead. So some people say, maybe he's not as good as we think he is. But horses are funny. If they're accustomed to winning, right? And those of you that don't know, I trained him for a long time. That was my first life. They're funny. When they're winning competitively and they get a big lead, they can sense horses behind them. And so they'll just kind of slow down because there's nobody around. When they feel the pace, hoofs, the pounding of somebody closing on them, that's when they'll kick it in. When they can't hear anybody behind them, they're like, what the hell? I mean, they're very odd animals in this way. So I like Forte in this thing. I'm going to go with him right now. I think he's the one to beat. The second choice here is what is it? Tacit Trace. Yeah, Tapit Trice, 6 to 1. This is of the same barn coming out from Todd Pletcher. I mean, it's okay, right? I mean, he's a good second choice. I just don't see him beating Forte. The 8 to 1 shot here, Derma Static Cake or whatever his name is. I'm not sure I'm saying it right. Sada Gake, right?
Sadagake, I think.
Sadagake. Okay. He just won the UAE Derby there. Let me just tell you this. Horses coming from the Derby from the UAE, here's their record. 0-18 out of the money. They've never run in the money. They come from UAE. It's a 20-hour plane ride. It's just tough on the animal. They don't adjust. And so I throw him out. I wouldn't even put him in any exactas or anything else. The only one here you might want to watch is Angel of Empire at 8 to 1, because he's got the early speed. And this, he could steal this thing, just wire to wire, especially if he can back down the half. If he can back down the half, he's got a shot to go wire to wire in this thing. But Forte, without a doubt, the one to beat.
Yeah, a couple notes there. So just on Angel of Empire, he just beat Reincarnate by 3 lengths in the Arkansas Derby. He's one that's popping up a lot. That Ortiz, who mounts Forte and is considered the best jockey in the business right now, is really trying to speak to what the concerns of Forte when it comes to his sort of front runner status, as far as getting out in front of everyone and then slowing down. He's been saying, no, last couple races, last year or so, his mindset has changed. He likes being the front runner. He's blowing people away. He reacts to the bit. So they're definitely thinking about that strategy. And just to throw a couple question marks around that, and that's the big one I think on Forte, is who's going to pace him? Is he going to slow down? Is he going to lose interest? Ortiz has never won the Derby either. So it would be a great story if he does, but I don't even know if he's placed for the money. He's struggled in the Derby as far as being the best jockey in the business. We all know that's true. Pletcher, of course, considered the best trainer in the business. So you got the best jockey with the best horse and the best trainer. How can you not be about 5 to 2 when the thing closes or opens? So we'll see. I really like Practical Move coming out of California. Ramon Vasquez rides Practical Move. He just won the Santa Anita Derby on April 8th. I think that He's sort of in the middle pack. He might be about 11-1 right now. It's not like he's a true long shot, really. But that's a horse I'm kind of looking at, as well as Angel of Empire. Those are two that I'm kind of looking at as far as just getting a little bit
Practical
of some long
move.
money.
Let's get to him. Okay, he's got distance issues. That's my concern here.
Right,
He's
yeah.
really got distance issues, and yeah, he did win the Santa Anita Derby, and he was underrated in that race. But you know, a lot of these 3-year-olds, I mean, they start this Triple Crown. You know, you start here at 1.25 miles, right? A lot of them have not been able to do that. So I think he's got real distance issues, which would dissuade me from playing him. The other thing is, Jack, in that race, I mean, he didn't beat anybody, right? I mean, that was a very weak field there, so he didn't beat anybody. But you look, your analysis is spot on.
Yeah, and we'll see. I mean, what we're going to do next week is we're going to do 45. Like I said, we're going to do 45 minutes of the UFC, and then we're going to do 45 minutes of the Derby. We're going to get through everything. We'll keep it kind of self-contained, just a couple panelists discussing all these horses, and we'll let Dad sort of take the lead, since that is one of his expertise. So we just sort of wanted to preview the Derby a little bit. Forte, the big front runner, practical move, Angel of Empire, sort of interesting. I've seen Two Phils a lot is another one that I'm kind of seeing.
The one that looks interesting to me is Kings Barnes. We haven't talked about Kings Barnes at all.
Okay, go ahead.
Who's 12-1. He's 3-0 career. He just started racing in January. He's like the third Pletcher horse. He's like the one that nobody's talking about. That's also a Pletcher horse. Because he's an actual front runner. I mean, everything that John said was, this is a race that probably won't have a ton of pace. And all we did was pick like basically closers or stalkers, which doesn't make any sense to me. If there's no pace, then it's almost always going to be a horse that's got a lot of front end speed that just hangs on the entire way, because they don't have anything to reel in at the end. So
his problem here again is he didn't beat anybody. I mean, this gets really competitive at this level, Nate. He's an undefeated winner. He won the Grade 2 Louisiana Derby. He went wire to wire in that. But that was a really suspect field. And Kings Barnes, for me, has got a lot to prove. Yeah, is he gonna? The only shot they got with him is to push him out of the gate and try to set the pace and hang on. But again, you go into that extra 1/4 mile, it becomes really, really, really tough. I mean, if the one horse in there, if you want a front runner with the best speed, early speed, is Maggi at 15-1. Here's the problem. He can't get out of the gate. He just can't get out of the gate. And until they solve that, you can't bet him either. But if he could get out of the gate, if you really wanted to throw the dice here on an upset, so I think he's 15-1 now. I think he's going to go up at 25-1 because he can't get out of the gate. But if he does, he's got the speed and the stamina to go wire to wire in this thing. But 4 races out of 5, he just can't get out. And horses that can't do that, it's oh my God, it's so frustrating, because you just, as a trainer, you know, you're working with them, but they got a mental thing. They just don't want to get out of the gate. And so they just stumble, hang around, and, you know, and in a race like this with a competition here, that becomes really hard.
You know, I've been with you, Dad, at a lot of these tracks, you know, ever since I was probably, I don't know, 8 or 9. And one thing I can tell your listeners about you is you fade horses that can't get out of the gate. I mean, that's a huge concern for you, and has probably been a strategy of yours for many years. And, you know, you're kind of right. If they can't get out of the gate, then it can be really difficult to make up that speed, especially against an elite field like this. So you're right there. So I'm very excited to talk Derby next week. I mean, it's going to be a lot of fun, and we'll do that next week. Just a little preview there, but we have a lot we want to get to today. We want to involve everybody else here as well. So we're going to talk a little bit now about the NFL draft. Dad, I'm going to get to you because I know the second round pick, not so high on that. But I first want to just welcome Sherriff Clarke to our show here. Great to see you, Sherriff. So I want you to talk about these sources you got, because you nailed the Will Levis pick in the Titans. So I mean, I kind of want to coordinate you, the draft guy, now that you're handicapping picks.
Tell everybody that for 7 days he drove me nuts. Tell him they're going to trade Derrick Henry, and he texts. This is what time he texts me. He knows I go to bed at 8:30, right? Like clockwork every night. 8:42. Sherriff Clarke. Oh, I just got a source. They're trading Derrick Henry to Philadelphia. Oh, I just heard he's going to Dallas. Oh, they're getting rid of Tannehill. I mean, it's every night he texts me this stuff, knowing I'm in bed about to fall asleep to drive me bat crap crazy. Thank you,
John. You look at it this way: if you're going to stay up on what's going on, the scuttlebutt and all the talk going on, you got to stay up late, man. You can't go to bed at 8 o'clock.
At least 9. You gotta stay up till at least 9.
But as for sources, you never give up your sources. It's like a journalist. You never give up your sources. I'll admit some of it I was rubbing it in about Derrick Henry. There was a lot of talk about that. I didn't really think it was going to happen, but I knew it would get under John's skin. But the Levis thing was, I was thinking of your guy last year, Malik Willis. The Levis thing, it kind of made sense in that spot because Tennessee does need to start looking at the future in terms of the quarterback situation. I mean, they kind of, it reminds me of, being in high school and all the pretty girls are taken up to ask out and you need a date. And so you just take, whatever's there. And that's kind of how they're looking at Tannehill. And they're looking at Tannehill. They really don't want him, but it's like, well,
that is a brutal analogy. Like there's nobody left to take to the prom.
Yeah, I'm not sure
anyway,
Will Levis would appreciate that.
It made sense. I don't know. The stuff I'm seeing on this kid doesn't bother me at all. I know we had some conversations during the week, about his brashness, his overconfidence. You have to have that kind of attitude to play at that level and to play that position. Now, everybody doesn't do it publicly, but if you don't think that people like Aaron Rodgers don't think I'm the baddest man on the planet, he just might not say it, whereas Levis comes out and he says these things publicly. But I like his bravado. I like his confidence. I don't know who comes into the league saying, well, I'm just content with being a backup in this league. And I'll just sit here. They all come in with, they want to start, but you got to be careful in the locker room. You come in, you've never taken a snap, and you can't come in there, like you're a 5, 6, 7 year vet, talking crap and talking smack. And that's what Levis brings. It's going to be interesting. I guess I'm going to have to wait and see how long it takes before Derrick Henry takes a punch at him in training camp because he's tired of his nonsense in his mouth.
Well, Nate made the comment too about, Dad hates the Will Levis thing right now until he wins one game in Tampa Bay. And then he's going to be like, this guy's got the intangibles. This is why the Titans, they take guys with character. And this was just such a smart pick at number 2. So, it all changes the minute they win a game. But Dad, we'll get to your analysis of Will in a minute. So what I'm going to change stuff up here on the show sheet just very quickly. So I want to do about 10 more minutes of the NFL draft, and I'll kind of go around the horn. Dan, if you've got an NFL team that you follow, we'll talk about that as well. We'll just kind of talk about, like, we'll call it home or corner. Our team, we'll talk about how their draft is going. But before we do that, Dad, I want you and Patrick to tell us a little bit about targettrading.co.
Patrick, go ahead.
Well, let's see. This week, we were 85 student wins, 24 losses, and 4 break even. So the market's picking up again. We're starting to get some movement. For a few weeks, it was just going sideways, and we were still profitable. Still profitable when everybody else was pretty much getting chewed to pieces. And this is something that I had said on the radio show this week, John, that if you think that we're not in a recession, you're crazy. What you're not hearing is bank runs. People are going on bank runs. People are withdrawing their money. I'm going to tell you something right now. We deal with a couple of different banks. Wires are taking extra days to get sent out. when I go into the lobbies, I literally hear other people saying, well, we're here to close the account, and the employees at the bank are saying, well, we're going to need to speak to a manager about that. So you can't even get your own money out, which tells me that the bank run situation is a whole hell of a lot worse than, well, no one's reporting it to begin with, but then it really is. And this was the point that I was making on the show, John. I understand people's anxiety about keeping their money in a bank. Look, I don't keep money in a bank. I refuse to do it. But if you're going to withdraw money out of a bank, it's going to run out sooner or later. You need to do something with it. And what I've been telling people for years is you need to learn how to trade. You can become your own boss. You can do it roughly 24 hours a day. You do it when you have time. You don't let it get in the way of your regular life, but you got to do something, because I'm telling everybody, I don't know what day it's going to come, but if you think things are bad now, when the banks decide to take their street tax and they crash the market, trust me, it's going to get very ugly.
Well, I tell you what, you want to check out Patrick's company. I've got about 100 students in it. Everybody's done very, very well. Just go to targettraining.co, targettraining.co. But right now, if you act today or Sunday, right? We're going to make it to the end of the month. I had thought for some reason yesterday was the end of the month, Friday, but yeah, 2 more days.
Week.
What you're going to get 30% off your tuition. 30%. Patrick has never done this. He gives 15% off for promo code Godzilla. He's giving 30% off. You got 2 more days, Patrick, but you got to call the number and you're going to answer the phone. What is it?
888-203-3731. 888-203-3731. Our guys never stop working, so they're there. This is going to be to the end of the month. I was talking to John about this, seeing as how it's tax time and the government is shaking everybody down. I want to give everybody an opportunity to make their life better. A lot of people still couldn't do it at 15%. Let's see if some people can do it at 30.
All right, I'm going to put that number on the Getter chat. 888, what is it?
203-3731.
203-3731. Call that number, Godzilla. You're going to get 30% off your tuition. Pat's never offered this ever. So thank you for doing that.
You're welcome, John. Thank you.
And we want to thank Patrick and everything that targettrading.co has done for our show. Okay, so we got about 10 minutes here. I want to go around the horn. Just if you got a team or you got a little draft analysis, some overreactions, whatever you want to do is fine. We're going to start with Dad, the king of overreactions. Tell us about your Titans, and then we might go to the 2 Cowboys fans and end with Dan.
I want to win. That's all. I'm a fan. I want to win. We got the best running back in probably the history of the NFL.
No.
Got another year in his contract. I like Ryan Tannehill. We got a great defense. We signed our big guy, right? This team can win the division. So you got 6 picks. Pick people to win the division. I loved our first pick, Sirkowski out of Northwestern. I love this kid. Immediate starter, anchors that offensive line. We need help there. He was not in Kansas City when they called him up. He was with his parents at a pizza parlor. This is the kind of guy the Titans need. This is a Titans guy, right? Mike Vrabel said he's vicious. Love it. Okay, he's violent. Love it. Right? Then you got you got the second round coming up. We need a receiver. No, it defies logic. You pick this guy from Kentucky. Here's my problem with Levis. Okay, I got one problem. You know what it is? It's one word, or it's 3 words. Southeastern Conference. He ran up numbers against like weak sisters, and then when he plays in the SEC, his numbers were horrible. He had 16 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. He makes bad decisions. He's an egomaniac. I mean, to me, you're going to roll the dice again on somebody that I just don't see it, just like we did with Malik Willis. And I remember we picked him, and my Joe, your brother Joe was like, oh, this is a great pick. And I'm like, you can't go from Liberty University to playing NFL football at quarterback. I mean, give me a break. These people play like Old Dominion. I mean, it's not, the pace is different. So I'm not a fan. Maybe he'll turn out Apparently, this was driven by Mike Vrabel. I got a lot of confidence in him. Something when he went to the camp they liked about him, but we need a receiver. Then the third round, we pick a running back. So now we're picking for 2025. Meantime, we don't have anybody to catch the football. So, make a decision. We're either going to play for 2023 or play for 2025. But like they're in between. I don't think that's a good strategy.
They've made it.
So that pissed me
They're
off.
playing for 2025.
Yeah.
They've made
guess.
it.
You kind of
They'll
have
release
to in that division.
Tannehill.
Go ahead,
mean,
Dan.
They're not
You
going to
kinda-
release Tannehill. Stop. Okay,
You kind of
Tannehill's
have to in that division.
quarterback in 2023. Stop with the Tannehill stuff.
Okay,
Like-
go ahead, Dan.
So in the AFC South, I mean, with what Jacksonville showed last year, and with now that they actually have a real coach in place instead of Urban Meyer's disaster, I mean, the Jaguars are the kings of the AFC South right now, and they are only going to get better. So the Titans, I think they're in a position where they're kind of stuck in the middle. You've got two teams that are just a mess below them in Houston and Indianapolis. And that's actually going to be really interesting here now that the Titans have taken Levis and the Colts have gone with Richardson, because for the record, I'm not a Colts fan. I don't actually have an NFL team I personally follow, but I've been reading the papers quite a bit here in Indianapolis, and that's been a big debate among a lot of sources. The Star has been pretty vocal about wanting Richardson and not Levis. So now they're going to get to see if they're right, because if Levis comes in and outplays Richardson and the Colts end up whiffing on this pick, then there's going to be a lot of people who are upset, and Chris Ballard is probably not going to have a job too much longer if that doesn't work out.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. And we love to see the Jacksonville love. Me and Nate were huge Jacksonville fans last year as they tried to make us a little bit of money there with our Super Bowl futures. So, Dad, mad about the Will Levis pick there. Let's go to Sherriff Clarke, the Dallas Cowboys. How do you think they fared?
Well, first of all, let me help my brother John out here a little bit, because I know he's struggling immensely with what's going on and with the Tennessee Titans. First of all, you have to establish an identity. I'm talking about the team, and they're a running team right now. If they want to switch that identity, that's fine. Then you have to start drafting that way. John, as you know, and everybody in this conference knows, and this panel knows, these games are won in the trenches. They're won up front on both sides of the ball. I find it interesting that because this has become a pass-happy league, and this is about really scoring a lot of points now, because I remember when Mike McCarthy said at the end of the year, after he dumped Kellen Moore, which he should have done a couple of years ago, he said, I want to run the damn football so I can rest my defense. And everybody laughed at him. They said, oh, he's living in the past. This is a pass-happy league, blah, 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 blah. Well, why is it then that all of these defensive players went in the first round and they're the top? If this is so much a scoring league, people passed on tight ends. The guy from Notre Dame dropped down to the second round. He was supposed to be a first rounder. A couple of receivers went, but not many. Everyone was drafting defense. Well, if this is all about offense, then why is that happening? It's because these games are won in the trenches, for heaven's sake. So I think your first round pick, John, was pretty good. This guy's got a skill set. He's a good sized guy. We'll have to see, because the NFL is different. I don't know about his hand movement and his footwork, because that's important for an offensive lineman. So I guess we'll have to see. Now, as it relates to the Dallas Cowboys, this is what I meant when I was talking about you have to establish an identity. What do you want to be? Well, Mike McCarthy made it clear. Now, you can disagree with him. I don't mean the guys in this panel. People can disagree with him if they want about, well, no, this is not a 3 yards in a cloud of dust. It's not what he's talking about when he says, I want to run the damn football. He's talking about controlling the clock, controlling the offense. That way your defense is off the field, and when they come on, they're fresh. They have a great defense now, not a good defense, a great defense. And I think it got even better. And I'll be honest, I don't know much about, the guy taken in the first round, Macy Smith, defensive tackle out of Michigan. Nobody watches more football than I do. And I love college football. I sit down in front of the TV from 10 o'clock in the morning, Saturday till 10 o'clock at night watching college football. Nobody sits down to watch college football to watch interior linemen. So I don't know anything about this Macy Smith, right? And all these guys, even the guy that Tennessee draft, nobody. Now every once in a while they might highlight him and watch this guy on this play here. Watch this pancake blocker. Watch him open this hole. But nobody's watching these guys, so I don't know what to think about this guy. But the Cowboys obviously are high on him. They stood pat. There was a report that Kansas City offered their first round pick in a trade with Dallas, and Dallas turned them down. That means Dallas was pat and said, we got our guy. We don't need to move up in the first round to get him. This guy's got size. He's a run stuffer. That was one of the weaknesses that the defense had last year. They couldn't stop the run. They had to make a midseason trade for this guy from the Raiders, and then he got hurt. But this guy is big. He's a big 300-pound, over 300 pound, 330, a run stuffer, a nose tackle. They haven't had that kind of player in Dallas in probably the last 10, 15 years. The second round, they take a tight end out of Michigan. I don't know much about the guy, but he's big. Mike McCarthy made it clear when he came in. He said, we got to get bigger, faster, and stronger. So it seems like he's sticking to that. He trusts his instincts on this, McCarthy. And now they're drafting for that. The last couple of drafts were pretty good. They got some starters, but you got to get guys that can start, man, because you can't. Now the third round guy, you know what the read up on his was? It said he'll make a good special teams player. Look, you don't draft a guy in the third round to be a special teams player. That's for the fourth, fifth, sixth, seventh round. Some free agents will be a bunch of undrafted people coming in. You might find a guy to play special teams there. But in your first 3 rounds, you got to hit, especially in rounds 2 and 3. That's where most of your good to great players are found. They're not in the first round, second, third, and even the fourth round. If you do well there, you'll be fine. So I'm trusted in Mike. I'm not in the offices when they're discussing things, but I'm trusting in Mike. I've always liked Mike McCarthy. When he was with the Packers, I wasn't a Packer fan. I didn't like Mike McCarthy when he was the coach of the Packers. Why? Because his teams were always prepared, and his teams, they never got blown out. Even in the games they lost, it came down to the last possession. They won their last Super Bowl under Mike McCarthy. So in Mike, I trust.
In Mike, I trust. Nate, you might not trust so much in Mike McCarthy, even though Nate is from Half Moon Bay out in California, still a Cowboys fan. So go ahead and tell us why, what you thought of the first couple rounds.
So the first couple rounds, I mean, Sherriff Clarke pretty much covered the Cowboys pretty well. I mean, I'm happy with the defense getting upgraded. It was frustrating watching teams run the ball really effectively against them. So seems like they've done a lot to stop that. I mean, it was filling holes. It's not a sexy draft, but the Cowboys don't need a lot of sexy picks to continue to contend. I think that my main concern wasn't the Cowboys. It was that the Eagles got way better in the NFC East. That's what killed me was like the Eagles had an incredible draft. Like the offense is already great. They were really close to winning the Super Bowl, obviously earlier this year. And then all they did was just upgrade the defense just tremendously. I mean, so my biggest concern as a Cowboys fan is like the Eagles are just look like they're just building a dominant franchise that's going to be around for a few more years and give the Cowboys a lot of problems in the NFC East. That's my big takeaway.
What did you think of? I'm not a Pete Carroll fan or a Seattle fan, but I was very intrigued by his 5th pick going with that cornerback. What'd you guys think of that?
I mean, that's Pete Carroll, right? I mean, he's a defensive back guy. That's where he's always been. That's sort of like his style. I mean, it makes sense. I mean, they had no defense last year,
right?
Like none, like just abysmal, especially against the pass. So, I mean, it makes sense. I mean, they have to upgrade somehow. I mean, you may as well use your pick. I mean, the offense was pretty good last year. It was just the secondary was just garbage.
Well, I want to push back a little bit on this, these narratives that develop, because I've been hearing this for the last 2 days about the Eagles. The Eagles, they're building a dynasty. That, the draft is going to take 2-3 years for most of these guys to pan out. That's what the experts say, about 2-3 years to evaluate a draft. And here we're doing it 2-3 hours after the draft. As for the Eagles and who they drafted, the number one reason why Carter slipped it wasn't that crash he was in, although that was despicable. He leaves his friend behind in a violent car wreck, and he leaves the scene. You know, who needs friends like that, right? That's not why he slipped. That's a good excuse. The reason he slipped because the wrap on Carter takes downs off. He doesn't play, his motor doesn't continually run the entire game, and he takes downs off. Dallas has drafted some guys like that. They take Tristan Hill. I know the names. Tristan Hill, the wrap on him coming out, I think he was their second round. I don't think they had a first rounder that year. It's like 3 years ago. But it was that Tristan Hill's motor didn't run all the time, and sure as crap. The guy's no longer with the Cowboys. So that was why Carter slipped. And then the other thing is with this great Georgia defense, right? Oh, Georgia defense. Oh, it's all wrong. Did you see them against Ohio State? Ohio State shredded that defense, vaunted defense for over 500 yards with those 2 draft picks, starters that the Eagles took. Look, that defense was good at some positions, Georgia. If they were so great, why couldn't they stop C.J. Stroud and the Ohio State over 500 yards they gave up? That's insane.
I agree with you 100%. I agree with you 100%. For 3 days, all I've been hearing about this Philadelphia Eagles narrative, like they got this dynasty going. They pick a guy with all kinds of issues. That's why he dropped down. But you nailed it, Sherriff. It's not only the fact that what he did off the field was despicable, and it speaks to the guy's character, but that was his rap. He absolutely nailed it. That was his rap on Georgia, is that he loafed. You know, he didn't give you 100% every time on defense. And, you know, they look at him on paper and they say, oh, you know, the bad boy Eagles. I'm sick of their narrative. I'm with you 100%. And I love what I'm not a Cowboy fan, but I love what McCarthy said. Okay. He set a vision for the team. I don't think you guys had that. Now you do, but I agree with you 100%. If I hear one more ESPN empty suit talking head tell me about the Eagles dynasty, I'm going to just throw up. I'm sick of these people. And you know what? I thought Dallas improved the same as the Eagles did. So you know what? Screw that. You're right.
Yeah. Okay. I'm kind of tired of listening to old guys talk about how young guys are taking downs off. Like, you know, here we go. Like, every down you gotta be ready. Like, come on. Like, what are you guys talking about? Like,
like a 330-pound defensive lineman. Like, of course his motor doesn't run all the time.
Yeah, like, I mean, I've seen Dad like take a breather as he's trying to get more coffee. Like, come on, guys, calm down.
I'm 65.
Aaron Donald didn't take downs off, and he's a big guy too. You got to come in shape, and you have to have desire, and that's probably what they're talking about with Carter.
I would have, as a Falcons fan, I would have liked to see Carter go to the Falcons and shore up that defensive line a little bit. Although I'm not totally unhappy with the Bijan Robinson pick. I got in a bunch of Twitter fights yesterday. People kept saying, "Oh, good thing you're not the GM." It's like, well, I don't know. I would have taken Carter, so maybe I should be the GM.
The shiny object. Some teams draft for shiny objects. Others draft for a philosophy. These guys are good athletes, Bijan Robinson, but those are shiny objects. And so when you draft them early, and by the way, the reason why you're drafting that high is because you sucked the year before.
Yeah. Okay. I mean, the Titans drafted 11, so you know, we all suck. And the Falcons always suck, so that's not a problem. I mean,
well, that's what I meant.
I mean, there are a few teams who are drafted high because they made smart deals. Hello, Seattle, and Russell Wilson.
Yeah, absolutely true. So you know, we'll see. But Dad, I want you to tell us really quickly before we get to some of Dan's stuff here, because he's got some hockey stuff that I want to get to. Just tell us a little bit about Ignite 45.
Ignacio Falco, he started this company to help small businesses and help all businesses with their digital needs. And I just got to tell you right off the bat, if you own a company, if you own any company at all, it doesn't matter what you're doing. You've got a website, you got social media. All right. If you're not taking advantage of it 100%, you're really hurting yourself. We saw it with Godzilla Wins. That's how our company is taken off. That's how John Fredericks radio network is taken off. And just go to ignite45.com, ignite45.com. and hook up with Iggy there. And here's what they're going to do. They're going to look at your business, social media, your website. They're going to do an analysis, and then they're going to get out what your objective is. And then they're going to get back to you with a plan. Doesn't cost you anything. the plan in and of itself is worth something to your company. Now, maybe you engage them, maybe you don't. We did, but you've got to make that decision. But get the analysis done. All you got to do is go to ignite45.com, ignite45.com, promo code Godzilla. You're going to get $100 off your first order. Do the analysis of your business. They'll look at your site, your social media. They'll give you recommendations. Go from there. Great people. Ignacio Falco and his wife, ignite45.com. And we thank them for being a founding sponsor of Godzilla Wins.
Okay, thanks. Thank you, Ignite45 and Ignacio, for all you do for us. Dan, we initially had some MLB stuff here, and if you want to do that, that's fine. But you also emailed me and asked if you do some hockey playoffs right now, NHL going on. And I said, yeah, absolutely. So one of the things I'll say, Dan, before we talk about this is I'm actually glad that you mentioned the hockey stuff, because your hockey picks have been right now some of our most popular articles on Godzilla Wins. I was looking at some of the data the other day and I was like, oh man, these NHL picks are like really popular. And of course, Dan, you're a terrific writer, so there's no reason why they wouldn't be great handicappers. So we want to thank all your contributions, both baseball and in NHL, and the college basketball you did stuff was great too. So take it away any direction you want to, and we'll just kind of bounce around some ideas from there.
Okay. Well, I mean, the biggest thing that has really caught my eye this past week is how the Devils have just gotten off the canvas after two really tough games in that series against New York. They changed goaltenders, and the Rangers seem to have no idea how to play against Schmid. The biggest thing is New York's only gotten 82 pucks to the net over the past 3 games, so just over 27 shots a game, which isn't really that high of a total, and they've only scored twice in the last 3 games. So New Jersey has completely taken control of this series. They're playing with confidence right now, and the young guys who came in with a lot of questions about their experience, they've answered the bell. So this looks like one where the Devils might close this out today. My pick on that game is actually going to be the Rangers team total under 3, because I just don't see this Rangers offense figuring out the way the Devils defense is playing right now. The other Eastern Conference matchup that's going on today, I got to go with Tampa Bay at home. Lightning are -110 on the money line, and this is what Toronto does in April. I've taken to calling it the curse of the Senators as kind of a bit of payback for all the misery the Leafs put me through in high school when they would knock out the Senators year after year. But they haven't won a series since they beat us in 2004, and they've now lost 5 consecutive series that have gone the distance. And if they lose this game in Tampa, they're going to have to go back to Toronto and play a game 7 where that Leafs crowd is going to be terrified of seeing it happen again. And the reality is, even though Tampa is down 3-2 in this series should realistically already be over. The Lightning completely outplayed the Leafs in games 3 and game 4. Toronto just managed to come back with 2 10-minute stretches where the Lightning just forgot what they were doing. But Tampa Bay has been the better team through most of this series, and they expect to win. The Lightning have been here so many times before with a lot of success, and the Leafs have had no success on this stage. So Tampa Bay money line looks like the play. And then Edmonton, I think, takes control of this game 6 against the Kings. LA has done a decent job bouncing back for most of this series, but the Oilers buried the Kings last game, and they didn't even need big contributions from McDavid or Draisaitl to do it. So when that's happening, LA really doesn't have much of an answer for that kind of firepower. So I think this is going to be one that's pretty straightforward. I think the Oilers take care of this one and get ready for what should be a really
what's
series.
the Oilers Kings game? What's that line?
-170 for Edmonton.
Right, but you love the Oilers here, right?
Yeah, I think this might be a puck line game.
Thank you.
So Dan, you like Rangers team total under 3?
Yep.
Against the Devils, who have been struggling, like you said, with that, or the Lightning -110 and the Oilers -170.
Yeah, and as John just mentioned, Oilers -1.5 at +140 looks like it could be a high value play because
I'm gonna bet the Oilers tonight. Would you just because I agree with your analysis, so I'm gonna bet Edmonton. But aren't you just better off laying the 170? I mean, the problem with
you probably are.
Right.
You probably
just
are.
like win the bet.
Oh
Yeah,
no.
you probably are if you're just looking to get a win, but in this situation, like I tend to look for where's going to give me the most value rather than just trying to get the
Oh
win.
yeah, the value players. Okay, I got it.
Yeah,
All right, I'm
because
gonna bet the Oilers minus to 170. I also
Fair
love
enough.
your
Johnny
I
Chalk.
love your analysis though. I wasn't really thinking about Tampa Bay, but you really see them, and they're what? They're minus
minus
10 at
110
home.
on the money line.
Johnny Chalk minus 110 might as well be plus 240. I mean, for
Yeah.
him,
Never
that's
gonna
like
play
a
that.
no-brainer. Yeah, I mean, he's gonna play that all day. So yeah, okay. So we got some real interesting NHL stuff, the playoffs. I mean, the Lightning always seem to be really strong this time of year. Like you say, I'm glad your the curse is still alive for you, so that you still
I'm enjoying this.
still
I mean, the Senators still suck. We haven't made the playoffs ourselves since 2017, which I still don't know how we made the Eastern Finals that year.
What makes you an Ottawa Senators fan?
Oh boy. So I was quite the strange child, and in 1995, when the NHL had the lockout, the Senators managed to win all of 9 games that year. And eight-year-old me in Virginia goes, this team is so terrible. They probably don't have any fans. Every team's got to have some fans. These are going to be my guys.
That's a cool story.
I love the way you think. I did that with Rutgers when I was like 10
Oh, here we
years
go
old.
again with Rutgers.
Yeah.
I played.
Falcons.
Yeah, that's right. I play and Ole Miss. I played college with the NCAA game, and
Nice.
I was like, all right, I was playing a buddy. I was like, what's the worst team on here? It was Rutgers, and he was a Miami Hurricanes fan. This was like 2002, right? And of course, because it's Madden, it's a video game, I won, and I was like, oh, I'm a Rutgers fan from now on, Jersey roots. So I hear you there.
Yeah, but people don't know that.
Defense.
People don't know that you actually considered going to Rutgers, and I actually took you there. We did a campus tour, you and I driving around in New Brunswick, and you decided that wasn't for me. I also took you to Fairleigh Dickinson, and you had no interest in that. But you did actually.
Fairleigh Dickinson's kind of a dirty word in this state now.
I took him to Fairleigh Dickinson. That's my alma mater. I was trying to get him to go there, and he had no interest. But once we drove around Rutgers, and he saw that he had to take a commuter bus from campus to campus to get to different classes, he was like, no, I don't think I want to go here.
That was exactly what turned me off from ever considering West Virginia. Went through Morgantown to see if it was worth a visit. Saw the buses. It's like, no.
Yeah, well, that's where my son's going.
Remind me, Jack, to never take you along when I'm going to pick out a puppy, because you're going to pick out the runt of the litter, because he looks sad and he looks lonely. I'm looking for the blue ribbon winning dog and dog contest, and you're going to pick out the saddest looking one.
Yeah, we know your history with the blue chips there, even in dog ownership. I almost took home a wounded dog yesterday that was on the golf course. So you're right there. Now we got to get to some Major League Baseball in a minute. I'm going to do 2 things here, and Dad, you'll have to go kind of quickly for me. But before we get to Rosie's Gaming Emporium, I got to do a temperature check. South Florida, the Heat, big upset. Milwaukee in 5 games. Is it? I mean, has anyone slept since yesterday or 2 days ago, whenever that was?
There was a game. I wasn't notified of this. Again, tells you how people follow stuff in South Florida. It's actually been sunny down here for the last couple of days, so I think all the action's been at the beach.
Yeah, that makes sense. Well, maybe Jimmy Butler can fire up the South Florida crew there in the midst.
All 4 of them. Yeah.
That was inexcusable. Inexcusable for what happened, and in situations like that, they got a big payroll. The Bucks, I think they got 3 guys making over $30 million a year, and you have the best record in the regular season, so you got the number 1 seed, and you lose to a team that's basically depleted. The Heat lost 2 players during the series, including Tyler Hero, a scorer, and so it should have made it more difficult to score the basketball. But it wasn't. It was an epic collapse. You can only win 1 game out of 4 against the 8 seed who had to play a play-in game, lost their first play-in game and had to win the second one just to get the 8th seed. Budenholzer's got to accept the responsibility for this. I know they like to pour it on to Giannis, and he had some post-game comments. I'm not going to get all wrapped up in as to his response, but somebody's got to pay for this. And now they got a new majority owner coming in. A guy I think owns the Cleveland Guardians and a hockey team, but he bought 25% of the team. That's a lot of money. You got that big payroll. Budenholzer's had some epic collapses before with this core group of people. You know, Brook Lopez, Giannis, obviously. And then I can't think of the guy, the defensive specialist, but this was epic. And I'll tell you what, the people here in Milwaukee, they are pissed off.
Oh, I bet they are. And
what happened?
And if it what the other thing you got to think about with Bud is like if KD hits that shot the year that they made that run,
right?
The Bucks have nothing, and I think Bud's gone by that time. So a lot of frustration for Bud there. Now we do want to get to some MLB picks. We didn't have a ton of time for the playoffs, the MLB playoffs or the NBA playoffs, and we'll get to that in about 2 weeks when it really heats up. Next week we're doing UFC and Kentucky Derby. Then we'll talk about that because I'm starting to lock in as well. Now, Dad, before we get to the MLB picks, we'll do rapid fire. I know you probably have about 100 favorites that you can do, but tell us about Rosie's Gaming Emporium.
Go to rosiegamingemporium.com. If you live in Virginia, 5 locations. It's going to have so much fun there. Don't forget, Colonial Downs is the greatest racetrack in America, and I've been to all of them, almost, just about all of them. I love going there. We got our suite. July 13th is when the meet starts through September 9th. And that's going to be Thursday, Friday, Saturday, post time, 1:30 p.m. Nobody believes this. We move our entire radio operation to our suite at Colonial Downs for 9 weeks. Like there's nobody that does this. All our broadcasts are there. The TV show is there right at Colonial Downs, Suite 3. We have a great time. And Jack's coming and Nate's coming. You're all going to come out for a whole week there. We're going to have so much fun, especially when I get hot. But Rosie's over $500 million in jackpots right now. So if you're in Virginia, you're looking for something to do tonight, go to rosiesgamingemporium.com, rosiesgamingemporium.com. Check it out. The food is great. The atmosphere is great. And it's all about fun. And for you guys and gals, that is a great place to take your date. That is a great date night. rosiesgamingemporium.com. And we want to thank Rosie's and Colonial Downs for being a founding sponsor of Godzilla Wins. Thank you.
Absolutely. We absolutely do. So let's go around the horn here very quickly. This is a picks show. We have about 6 or 7 minutes. So I want to just do some MLB picks. If you have some other picks today that you want to throw in there, you can as well. Let's start with Dan. I know, Dan, you've always got some baseball stuff. Then we'll get to Dad, who does his daily baseball picks. Nate, if you've got some, you can jump in as well. Sherriff Clarke.
All right. So my first play is going to be the Rays team total over 5.5, because Lynn has been getting rocked so far this season. And if you get past him, it only gets worse from there. The White Sox bullpen is the second worst in the majors. And there's some pretty strong winds coming out toward the left center field fence today in Chicago. And the Rays hit the most home runs of anyone in baseball. So this should set up very well for Tampa Bay to put up a really big number on the board. Phillies Astros under 5.5 in the first 7 innings. Wheeler and Javier have mostly pitched well. Javier didn't look very good against the Pirates last time out, but other than that, he's done pretty well for Houston. And the weather is supposed to be nice enough today in Houston for them to open the roof at Minute Maid. And if they do, the wind is going to be blowing in at about 22 miles an hour today. So that should keep balls in the park. I don't want to mess with the Phillies bullpen at all. The Phillies bullpen is a gas can yet again. So I'm getting first 7 and getting out of this. So under 5.5 to give me a little bit of cushion there. For the Guardians Red Sox game, I'm going to go with Stephen Kwan to get a stolen base as a prop play, because the Guardians are second in baseball in steals, and the Red Sox have been giving up 1 steal per game. So this is just a plus money prop that looks like it holds pretty decent value. I hit one of mine yesterday with Chisholm getting a steal, actually getting 2 steals on the same trip down the bases in the Cubs Marlins game. So we'll see if that can happen again. Tyler Megal, I'm probably mispronouncing that, but under 5.5 strikeouts for the Mets today against the Braves. Atlanta does strike out a lot, but he's gone under his strikeout totals in 4 consecutive games. And there's likely to be some pretty bad weather in New York today, which could cause a rain delay. So that could get him out of the game, even if he is having a good day. So I think that prop number is too high at 5.5 strikeouts. And then finally, I'm going to go to Washington for both halves of a doubleheader. So I'm going to take the Pirates money line in the first game at -140. Patrick Corbin has been getting rocked for pretty much the last 2 seasons at this point, and the Nationals don't really have much behind him anyway. They're only 2-9 at home this season. And then the second game, over 9 looks really good to me. Chad Cole has gone over in all 4 of his starts, and the Pirates really manufacture runs well. They've stolen 37 bases this season. That's the most in baseball. They're very aggressive on the base paths. So I think Pittsburgh is going to do its part in scoring. If Washington does anything at the plate, this over should be in play.
Okay, awesome. A lot of good picks there, Dad. About 90 seconds for you. Rattle off some winners.
I'm going to run the table today. Orioles, I'm betting them both games over the Tigers. Somebody's got to beat this team. They're red hot. I go with streaks. I'm betting the Orioles both games. I'm betting the Pirates both games in Washington. Washington is horrible. Okay. Pittsburgh, they're having fun. All they do is win. Finally, people are starting to take notice of this team. I like Pittsburgh both games. I like Atlanta -178 at the Mets. Strider has been unhittable. I'm going with the Reds 4 in a row until somebody beats them. I'm going with Cincinnati over the A's -160. I love the Brew Crew. I'm going to catch them hot. I'm going to catch them. I try to catch waves. Caught them last evening. I like them -150. And I've not won a bet this season on the Dodgers. Not one. Eventually, this team has got to start to win. Maybe it's going to be tonight, -140 at home. I like the Dodgers. I'm trying to catch them on a streak. Haven't been able to do that. But Dodgers tonight, Reds. I love them. Go Reds. GodzillaWins.com, and I'll put my video up today about noon.
Yeah, bet $800 to win 4. Nate, any picks for you?
If you want to skip John's analysis, you can just scroll through the betting sheet and just take anyone that's between -135 and -180, and you should have a pretty good idea of which way John is going. And you can just save yourself some reading.
Just go to the window and cash your ticket. See, these people are jealous. This is what I got to go through, Sherriff Clarke. All I do is give them winners, and they can't figure out how I do it. And so they have to try to tear me down with all their millennial
just told
baloney.
people how to figure out how you do it.
Yeah, and don't try to get
how I
Sheriff.
do it. I bet streaks.
Don't try to get Sheriff Clarke on as your ally. 2 days ago, you said you're going to block him because you were mad he was kept texting about Derrick Henry.
I got one stick I'll give you after the show. It would get way too complicated to explain right now, but I'll tell you guys after.
Here's the play that I love. The Mexico City game. The total is 15.5. Both pitchers terrible. Manea horrible. Musgrove horrible. At 8,000 feet, let's go home runs. I love the over 15.5. I think these guys are going to go off in this game. Bats are going to be hot. So that's my one big pick. As I'm fired up for this Mexico City game at elevation. 2 terrible pitchers.
How do you guys come up with this stuff? What do you how do you even come up with Mexico City game over 15.5 runs? What kind of a wager is that? What do you do? Sit there and root for homers?
Yes.
I don't get it.
Yeah. It's the Giants and the Padres. It's going to be awesome.
Pick a winner for God's sake.
John, you know what
I'm
happens
giving
in
you
Denver?
a winner over 15.5.
I would
That is
never
a
make
winner.
that bet. That's an insane bet.
No.
It'll cash. Yeah, it'll cash. And look, we love that.
That's because you guys do TikTok. That's your problem. TikTok's your problem.
I've never been on TikTok.
TikTok's your problem.
I've never been on it.
I've never been on it. And also, Jack and Nate, and they're putting my stuff up on it. I didn't even know I was on there until somebody told me, "Hey, I see you're doing TikTok." I'm like, I don't even know what TikTok is. They're like, "Oh yeah, your pics are on there every day." I'm like, what?
Pretend you don't know. We want to keep on the platform.
Yeah. Don't get us kicked off.
Don't log in.
I don't even know what my password is. I don't even know. I don't even have the
Keep
app.
it that way.
Yeah, I
keep
haven't.
it that way. He doesn't know.
yeah.
Keep it that way.
Yeah, just just go to Getter for all of your social media posts, please. Okay, so Dad, take us out. It's
Listen,
9:01.
thanks everybody for being with us today. And I'm sorry the millennials are so jealous of me, but you know what? That's why I'm the adult in the room. That's why I'm the dad, right? That's why I pick the winners, and they keep chasing me with their 15.5 overs at Mexico City, whatever the hell they're talking about. Jesus, I can't take it anymore. Anyway, Sherriff Clarke, I'm not blocking you anymore. So thanks for being
what? That's my goal, though, is to get you to block me, because then I'll go to my 850,000 on Twitter and say I just got shaded by John Fredericks. I just got blocked by John Fredericks.
I throw in shade on you, Sherriff.
That'll be huge.
Up next, Stephen K. Bannon, you're in the war room. Thanks for joining us.